Welcome to the Books and Beer Book Club, coming to you from Cercis Brewing Company in Columbus, Wisconsin. We're a different kind of book club, only reading books by authors who can visit us in person or via Zoom for the discussion. We've been going strong since 2015, meeting nearly every month. We're now making these fun and informative discussions available to you on video. I'm your host, Valerie Beal. I'm an author myself, and I enjoy interviewing our guest authors and facilitating the questions from our readers both in person and on Zoom. We hope you enjoy this replay. To join us live, please check out our schedule on our Facebook page at Books and Beer Columbus. Thanks for gracing us with your presence. Yeah. So Sara Dahmen is a Wisconsin gal who tends to write historical fiction, but not always.
Correct.
But not always.
That's why when you
we have focused on her Flats Junction series. We are now on book 4, Medicineman. When we followed your journey through a couple film options, now to a TV option. And I think we're going to start to talk about that. But we're also going to talk about this beautiful magical realism is what
I would call it that.
Magical realism. It's a fairy tale retelling.
Mm-hmm.
Dark fairy tale.
Like pre-Grimm Brothers dark.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
I've never wrote the word pustule, and I think I use it 4 times.
Like, did I play that?
I don't remember. No, you didn't. But I was like, pustule sounds disgusting. I will use that word. I never have a reason to use pustule.
So I think I wrote something back to you like, this was delicious.
Yeah.
Like the language and just the narrative and the descriptions and
someone said it's very visceral. It's a very visceral book.
Ooh, yeah. That's a good word too.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that. So we'll talk about that just a little bit too, because it's such a different type of thing, and you shifted to that. I was going to say what's new, and you started to talk about what's new as you walked in tonight. So
I was like ranting more than actually.
So you had an hour and a half drive?
Yeah.
So you were on the phone with your folks who are negotiating your TV shenanigans?
Yeah. The ongoing Flats Junction saga that are the books is also the ongoing Flats Junction saga that is the potential TV and movie deal.
And movie.
Now we're back to a movie. See how this works? We're back to a movie and yet nothing is done. Nothing is done. Yes. So the book, maybe last year, the books had just been optioned by Manic Media, which is a company out west in LA. They're always in LA. Then as we were, you sit there and you F around with like, who's a good enough showrunner? Who's a good enough, to start the writer's room and a good enough producer. And then you get the producers, but then they're picky about the showrunners. And then the showrunners that you picked are so good, they get like hired by other people faster. So then you're back to ground zero, finding someone, reading their stuff, getting everybody sign off, and then they get picked up. And it becomes this like pain in the butt stuff. And in the middle of it, one of the production companies that are 2 back, like I'm on my 4th company, they came back and they said, we've never forgotten these books. And we actually have financing, like 20 million, we have $20 million. Would you like it? And like, yes. But the problem is the books are still optioned by the company that I have paperwork signed, and I really don't want to screw it up. It becomes this, everybody has to play nice in the sandbox. And in the middle of it, like one wrong step and the whole thing dies. Right.
So you don't want to make the wrong person mad.
Right.
You don't want anybody to
but
walk away.
You also want to get screwed over.
Right.
And in the end, like I'm trying to remind myself, I have all the power. I have all the power to a point.
Yeah.
And I have awesome representation who have been around the block. Like my manager managed like Terry Pratchett's library. Oh, like wow. He's he just got back from Brazil because one of his clients is like he's in every magazine right now because he's doing like the biggest Netflix show in Brazil of all time right now.
That's wild.
Yeah. So like my manager's awesome. He's got my back.
Will the TV type of thing run out, or are they trying to figure out who? I mean, if you've got this other person in the wing saying
legally, because the discussions are happening well, if I'm under contract, they get grandfathered in. If you are in negotiations when your contract runs out, it automatically extends unless it's dead.
So even if you're closing in on a deadline where you get the rights back,
I won't get them back
because they will,
because we're in the middle of negotiations.
Okay. Gotcha.
Now, the really cool thing is this new financing is contingent, like it's required that a certain percentage of the profits all goes back to Native communities.
Ooh, nice.
For education, for reservation, upkeep and everything. So they are actually developing a 501c3 that actually gets in perpetuity, the royalties and the profits that will always feed back into the Native communities, which is awesome. Because like as much as people say they'll do that,
They don't always
Hollywood accounting is such BS. They'll be like, oh, we actually make nothing because we paid ourselves all of it. Like this way it's all already baked into the deal. So I'm really happy.
Is that the people that are doing the TV type thing?
So they are wanting to do a movie. The money goes first to a movie, and while the movie is getting made, they'll be developing the TV.
Gotcha. Okay.
All a pipe dream, guys. I haven't seen it yet.
Well, yeah. So until it's all signed.
Yeah. Until
it's produced.
No, I was gonna say you can sign a contract and stuff still won't get greenlit, or still will hit a snag, or still won't get bought.
Right. Right. And how does it work now? I mean, we always used to know, obviously with a movie, you don't have a, what do you call it? Like a pilot.
Correct.
Right. But I mean, people used to produce a pilot and then try to sell it. So how do they sell TV series now?
You can do it one of two ways. So now, and just so you guys know, so COVID obviously changed how we watch TV. The streaming wars was a thing.
Yeah.
And then as soon as we kind of got out of COVID and all of streaming started to shift, we had the writer's strike most of last year. And then the actor's strike.
Right.
Which ended up with them being really happy with the contracts that they got. Mm-hmm. However, business is business. All of these networks and streamers have shareholders, and they're like, that's fine. We will give you more money, but we will just hire less of you. This time, my manager told me this time last year, there were 100 pilots being shot. Right now, there are 3.
Whoa. So nobody goes out and produces an entire series anymore and then tries to shop it around.
No, you can.
Okay.
However, you will be shooting it in Eastern Europe.
How about Ukraine? Ukraine's super safe right now.
For a fraction of the cost.
Yeah.
But you're putting up the money for like all 8 episodes.
Yes.
And then you're shopping it around and hoping that someone buys it, or multiple places buy it, and you recoup your costs and make money from there.
Right.
But you have to, it's kind of like a bigger investment. It's a riskier investment up front, as opposed to just getting a pilot commission.
Right.
Which is also still in play, but there's 3. It's just, the industry is contracting right now, and it probably will for the next almost year.
Do you think if this were to move forward, are they going to follow the books in the sense that one book is one series, or one season, I should say?
Yeah, that's been the talk. It's one book is one season, but I don't think they really can do that without it making. I think they'll probably do a lot more mishmashing. Yeah. And honestly, with tribal money being part of the financing, there's a lot of, we would like some of our tribe members to be in, like, okay, we'll just write you in, I guess. Who knows?
Well, and you won't know because now what sort of rights did you retain when you sold those? Are you a producer? I'm
an executive producer, and I get books by, and then I can negotiate from there. So okay. I for sure get paid twice. So the goal when you do any type of contract like this is you want to have the number of times you get a credit are the number of times you get paid. So you can get paid for them to option the books. That's like a one-time amount. Then you get paid as a producer. Mm-hmm. So executive producers, I usually kind of your thing. And then you can get paid if you're a writer. Like if you write the screenplay, or you write an episode, or you're in the writer's room. And then depending on how the waterfall, the budget is, you get residuals or royalties from some of those lines, but not all.
Do you think, would you be part of the writing?
If it was a TV show, I would be absolutely able to be in the writer's room. If it's just a movie, I probably won't be able to. They'll probably hire a native person to write it.
And then
just because.
So would they just take the first book? I mean, I don't even know how you do, like, how do you decide? Because
I have no idea. I don't know what they're gonna do.
This could be like
This also might not be my problem. I'll just be, thank you for the money.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
Wow.
Cause yeah, you do give up a lot of creative rights.
Yes.
You can be a consulting producer. So like Outlander, just you guys read Outlander or watch Outlander, any
Yes.
of you?
Yes.
So like Diana Gabaldon, like
Yeah.
she is not a screenwriter at all,
Mm-mm.
but she does have a consulting producer credit.
Yes.
So that's one of her paychecks.
Yeah.
Then she has I don't think she's an executive producer, but then she also has the based on the novels by, that's
Right.
another one. So
Right.
she gets paid twice every episode.
And I know that and when she, like if you follow her on social media, she's on set.
Yep.
And she,
That's because of her consulting producer credit.
yes.
And because she has proven that she's not a pain in the butt
Yes.
to work with.
Well, I mean, that does matter. And I heard, I mean,
Yeah.
you do hear about stories about writers who nobody really ever wants on set again because they keep stopping things.
Or they'll
and-
ruin it, or they'll
Yeah.
rewrite it, or they'll be upset because things have deviated from their books and they're so like stuck
Yeah.
on it, and you really can't.
Well,
You'll ruin your career.
well, and to move a book into, a story on screen, small or large, you gotta leave a bunch of stuff out. And I think that some writers have trouble with that.
Mhm.
I mean, I have trouble writing my own synopsis because I want to put everything in it. So
Yeah, it's hard. You learn, I think that's, and honestly, if any of you are writers in here and you even want to break into like Hollywood, the best thing you can do is work on condensing. So I actually was asked by the executive producers, can you take all 7 of your books, 2 of which are not written yet, and can you condense each book 100 and some thousand words per book, right? So it's probably like 650,000 words.
Mhm.
Can you condense that down to 3 pages per book?
that's one. That's
21 pages
That's a-
for almost 700,000
right.
words.
That's a tight synopsis for how long your book's
Yes, it is. But I had to.
Yes.
It's
So the
amazing. I now know what happens in book 7. I had no idea until I read the synopsis. I was like, I gotta go look it up now.
Wait,
Only 6. Or I'm sorry, 6
One.
books. Sorry, yes, 6.
I don't know what happened to book 7 either. What's it called?
You rated it Stranger. I don't remember
Stranger?
what I made up.
Stranger?
I-
Trader, stranger.
You have this Trader. Trader, I'm halfway through. Writing.
Good. And so that'll be like fall.
That'll be fall of this year.
That's not that jerk, is it? What's his name?
Oh, shh.
Why?
I'm just kidding.
Yes, I can pronounce that name.
Eves. He's in all right.
But he's the trader?
No.
Okay.
Did you get to the end of Medicineman?
No.
Oh, well.
Oh,
Okay. There's kind of a cool twist there at the end.
I know. And my Ben, he wrote no. And the last sentence.
Ben is someone that I work with because she recommended me to a publisher and I do freelance work with them. But anyway.
Yeah, that was his line. He highlighted the last
Did you
sentence
see
of
what I wrote?
Medicine Man wrote.
What an ending. Gasp.
Yeah.
Exclamation point.
So much fun.
Are there any outfits out there that have everything under one roof, like they have their own writers, they have their own actors, and
Like
all you have to do is work with one thing, you don't have to worry about this.
They used to. That's how it used to be set up in the early days of Hollywood. Like in the 40s and 50s.
So the actors were assigned, they were
You had-
actor for MGM. and they
Yes,
were-
if you were signed with MGM, yet like as an actor, then the studio kind of always shoved you into their pictures, and their writers were on set, and and it was filmed on set, and it was a lot more like micro world at that time. That is no longer the case, but it definitely used to be. That is how it used to be. It is not anymore. Now studios produce, but they don't distribute. And they don't have their own actors and writers in house.
No, they just cast each project.
Correct.
Okay.
I just wondered, is your movie and your TV stuff, are they going to be connected? Like, it's like you see the movie and then the series will.
That
appear
is
on
the
TV?
plan if it moves forward with these financiers.
That's a movie and the TV stuff will be
All
completely connected.
it'll be all
Okay.
connected if it goes the way that they've explained how they want to do it. They also want to do products.
Like lunch boxes?
No, it would be actually
Lunch boxes.
it would be fair trade Native American products, like but
Oh.
under the Flats Junction like general store kind of vibe.
Well,
which
you were
I
gonna
think is
do-
awesome.
But you were gonna do that.
I was gonna do that, but I'm one person and
Yeah.
I really can't like create Flats
Well,
Junction store all on my own.
Purebred mix or?
Like bread
Something
mix.
incredible.
I don't know what they'll do. I think it'll be, it's the way I understand it is it'll be a conglomeration of whatever native artisans they would like to connect with, that they will then create a storefront under the umbrella of the brand.
Is this all gonna be Lakota soon? Or-
No, it won't, because the tribe that wants to do it is like a Pacific Northwest tribe,
Oh.
is like
Okay.
the chunk of the money, but like they have most of their money from like copper that they mine out of Texas. I don't know, I just will be glad that it's finally getting done if it happens. Like whatever it takes,
So,
whatever you want, I will give it to you. Let me give you my firstborn. He wants to be an electrician, he will help you, like I don't know.
it's old enough to be an apprentice. Okay, so, just a quick segue since we did a little product thing.
Yeah.
So you're still going strong with your house copper?
Yeah,
Okay, that's not what's the
yeah,
name
it's
of
House Copper.
House copper?
Yeah.
Is it just house copper?
Copper.
Okay.
Some people call it House of Copper, and I'm like, that would have been a cool name. I didn't think of it
The
back
House
then.
of Copper.
Yeah.
If you guys don't remember, I think pretty much everyone does, that came out of your deep dive into writing Widow.
And Tinsmith.
And
Tinsmith,
right, yeah, that you wanted to learn more about the trade
Right.
and cooking implements of the time.
Right.
And so you have beautiful copper cookware.
I do.
And you're still in the thick of creating copper cookware for other people?
I may have accidentally said yes. No, it wasn't an accident. I did on purpose. The Marine Corps. And
Well, you don't say no to them.
that's kind of how I felt. The Marine Corps and the Freemasons approached me a few months ago.
Separately, I assume.
No, together.
Oh, for real?
I guess.
Huh.
So they approached me as a group and they said, we would like you to remake copper tankards in the 1700 style for the tap. So I don't know if we're gonna really segue real quick, but it's historical, so it sort of touches this. So back in the 1600s, there was a tavern in Philadelphia called the Tun Tavern. It was made by a Quaker. And that tavern in Philadelphia was the first place the Marine Corps did a recruitment and kind of became the Marine Corps. It's where the birthplace of the Freemasons was. The Congregational Congress met there. So, and like Franklin, Adams, Jefferson, Washington, they've all been there. But in 1781, it burned to the ground. And since then, they've been trying to rebuild it, like as it used to be. And in 2025, November of 2025, it is the 250-year anniversary of the Marine Corps Reserve existing in America. And they are rebuilding the tavern at last. And they came to me and they said, could you build a couple thousand mugs completely by hand? All individually stamped with different names and different serial numbers and everything.
Wait, personalized?
Yeah. Like I have to take, like if your name is Adam, I'm like A. D. I mean, like
You're
every
telling
month.
everybody no names over
Oh,
7 letters.
I have no, it's like every line can be 24 letters. Like
Oh my
it's so,
gosh.
but so they're getting these tankards that I authenticated the shape and stuff to the time period to Philadelphia. And it's part of their fundraiser. And so any
sense,
Marine or Freemason or St. George Society and all these different,
Yeah.
they show up to the tavern ever, or someone who's there in their family, and they can get their serial, they'll know their serial number, they'll get their mug, because the mugs will be on display, all whatever many thousand or whatever. And they have bottomless beer out of that. And I was like, when they said that, I was like, do you know how big these things are? It's 36 ounces.
It's like being at
You're gonna get trashed with one.
that's like being
They're
at like Oktoberfest in Munich.
they're like this.
Like when you drink those, like it covers your eyes a little bit.
They're huge, and they're bottomless. I'm like, I mean, I guess you're Marines, so. But aren't most of you old? Like, I mean, you're like, oh my God.
Maybe they don't have one. I don't know.
But anyway.
If you were in Tun's Tavern in 1776 or whatever, you would have had that mug.
You would have had-
32-ounce copper thing.
Yes, we
I
actually.
thought they had cups with little handles and drinking.
You mean those were steins, like a beer stein, like from Germany. So if you brought your own, you could have used that. But no, I actually have in my American Copper and Brass book, They are only a few that they've found and authenticated to the time period and the
Yeah.
location.
That's
But
so cool.
there are actual copper tankards that just look like big mugs.
Did
that-
they actually find any like that in Philadelphia?
Yes,
Did they?
yes,
That's really cool.
yep, made in Philadelphia even, because the stamps.
Or did you actually go and see anyone in person?
No, I just saw photos of the collections.
So then you get this request and then you have to bid it out.
Yep,
How does one do that?
very carefully.
Because
Zero.
like, do you make a test one and time yourself? I mean, you'd probably get faster as you go
Yeah.
along, but
Yes,
like-
yeah, I did. I made 2 different prototypes and then I came and I said, this one's gonna be better to make. Also, it's more authentic, so it's also easier and
Yeah.
better.
So you could out the work to other people. couldn't you?
No, I have to make it myself. They specifically want them made by hand with all the seams the way they would have been made in the time period. Because I tried to be like, we could like just make a whole couple thousand, with machinery, it'd be worth investing. And they're like, no, we want them handmade with the seams the way it was. And I was like, I kind of hate that idea because it sounds like a lot of work.
I hope you gave, I hope you're
charged
happy
them-
with your
I am
bid.
very happy with my bid.
So you did, I mean, you've done stuff for Colonial Williamsburg.
Yeah.
What did you make for them?
Cups,
The smaller.
smaller mugs, like
Yeah.
smaller like mugs
Yeah.
type of, yeah.
Where else have you made things for? I know about that one.
That one.
I just think because you were talking about it.
Yeah, Colonial Williamsburg, nothing ever bigger, like I did some partnerships with Duluth Trading Company, but
Yeah.
very minimal, nothing else other than that. Some of the partnerships I've talked about with people have fallen apart because they don't understand that copper's expensive. And that the cost of copper does this, and I can't control the market,
Right.
like I could buy sheet copper today. And it'd be this much, and then in 2 months, when you want more, it'll be that much, and
Right.
that's just, so it's very hard to wholesale because of that discrepancy in the marketplace. And it's truly dependent on like a war.
Right.
It's just, it's the way it is,
Yeah, and if you have never had to source materials like that, you really haven't experienced.
And I'm
it, so-
truly like, you're so close to it when you're doing it this way, because like during COVID, I couldn't get stuff, like the smelters couldn't get the phosphorus out of Germany to like deoxidize the copper.
Oh my gosh.
Or like I wanted tin, but it's a silver-based tin that they make in Iowa. And they're like, but the silver mines in Canada are closed because of COVID, so we can't make it yet. Like, I'm that close to like literally pulling crap out of the ground, and it's all dependent upon market rates.
Yeah.
So when people want to wholesale stuff, I'm like, I mean, we can try, but you're not gonna like the prices in the end. Because
Yeah.
between just the raw cost and my time, it's just not something you can wholesale very easily.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
So when you make this, then that design is yours.
Yeah.
And you would never make that
Correct.
design then for anybody else.
Yes,
It's
it is a
especially for
custom
them.
built for them, yeah.
Gotcha.
How long did it take to make one?
Just one on its own,
We can use the mask.
it's like 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours. If I batch, there's efficiencies, but it's like weeks to do like 20 of them. I can do 20 in about 3 weeks.
What's your deadline?
November of 2025.
You have someone.
I do. I hired an assistant in June and she's awesome. Yep, and she's learning slowly, but it's kind of like there are things like, the thing is like, as you make these, you get to like a very early part where it's like, if you get up, you have to start over and that whole thing is junk.
Yeah.
And so there are processes like putting on the handles,
Yeah.
putting on the bases, that I'm like, Liz, you're not touching them now. I'm not gonna mess them up, or if something's not
Yeah.
right, I know how to kind of tweak it.
Yeah.
Whereas for her, like,
And then you lose how much time.
you could destroy an entire mug right at the last stage if you're not careful.
Mhm.
And so there are things I'm just like, you do this, I'll do all that. But
That's the
it
thing-
is
that's
still
the thing,
helpful.
though. But I'm glad that you have somebody.
Yeah.
Because I knew that you're not in your garage anymore.
Not in my garage. I'm in the shop.
Did you ever tell your insurance agent? you
Oh,
worked in
yeah.
your garage? Okay.
Oh, no, I kind of watched it. But now that I'm in like a regular shop,
We could talk
my
about it now.
insurance like tripled, and I went, how come it was 500 now it's 1,500? And he's like, because, and I was like, I mean, I didn't change anything other than it's in like a different type of garage. He's like, no, it goes right up.
Because it's so hot, fire prone.
The problem is I have to pay this insurance because like he figured out where to put me. And if every time I want to bid out new insurance, they're all like, we would like to help you, but we don't know how to insure you.
No.
Because you don't fit in any boxes.
Yes, yes,
Like none.
yes,
None.
that is a problem.
And
Mhm.
I didn't know that. I'm like, just make it up. They're like, well, like, we can't.
No,
You don't fit in any numbers.
they don't know what to do with you.
No,
Yeah, so you're right, you're
so
not,
I'm stuck.
so.
Stuck with math.
With your local. Treating you all right?
It's fine. The other insurance people like the price is actually pretty good. I'm like, fine if you sick. So I thought it was bogus, but I don't know.
That's just a lot. It's, I mean, yeah,
It is. what it is.
for the year, I hope.
Maybe
Well,
make your insurance guy a couple of times.
Oh, right?
Mine is,
I have that logo in there. Insurance guy come and walk around and he had all these questions and at the end he walked away, he's like, you just need to have like an updated fire extinguisher in here. And I'm like, yes, and then I got the bill and I'm like, oh, please. Oh,
Did you do a tree?
I didn't know. I should have buttered them up.
A copper pot.
$750.
Does your wife like to cook?
Yeah, I know, right?
Do you?
It's not a crime. I'm just being nice.
Can't get away with that.
I know, and I
gotta find a nice Italian, cause they always know a guy.
yeah, no guy. No, I'm Polish. And no Italian. Can't even play it.
The Polish don't know guys.
Not those kind of guys.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's talk about Medicineman. I had a lot of fun reading it because the earlier version I read was different.
Yes.
So
The earlier version you read was completely from Dr. Kinney's point of view.
it was, and I really liked. I like that you have the dual timelines, but also the dual point of view. And I know that that can get tricky, you know, like where to put those chapters and what to put in each chapter as you go back and forth. But I like that a lot.
Thanks. So, and I will tell you guys, so this was actually the second book I wrote in this series, even though it's now the fourth in publication. And when I first wrote it, I wanted to write it 100% from Dr. Kinney's point of view. And the first chapter, I was like, I'm going to start from when he was a baby. So the first chapter,
Oh my God, what did you do?
the first chapter, so chapter 1, and it said, I'm hungry. And it was chapter 2.
You did not.
And then the chapter 2 is like slightly more awareness, like one. And then chapter 3, and it was like that.
Did you show that?
Yes.
I didn't read that.
No, it got shut down real hard. And people were like, whatever you're doing, it's insane. And it doesn't work.
It's like reverse Benjamin Button.
It was. But here's the thing, then my publisher happened to be at the conference where they had, I thought it was cool, and I had them read it out loud at this like reading.
I'm like dying. I'm like dying 1,000 deaths.
Thank you. I didn't realize it was being like that much of a no-no. And everyone kind of ripped it apart and was like, all of it's wrong. Do not publish this. It's terrible. And at this point, like, I have award-winning books. I'm thinking like, I know my stuff.
Yeah.
Nope. And Ben like he heard it and came to me later and he goes, I know what you're trying to do. There's a better way to do it. That was his like nice Canadian way of being like, it sucks. And if you rewrite it, it'll be fine.
Oops.
But
I did it again.
it's not good now. And honestly, like he wasn't wrong. Like, and when I wrote it, then I rewrote it and I wrote it all in first person present tense. Oh, then I switched it to like, third person present tense and third person past tense and then changed it and all this stuff. And then by the time it went to Ben, it kind of was what it ended up being, what you read. I had redone it so many times I've lost count of how many drafts I have of this book. And he read it and he came back to me and goes, honestly, Sarah, out of the 4 books, it's probably my favorite. And he had very little change, very few changes. And I was like, really? Because like you hated it when you first heard it.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Everyone hated it. But it was a very hard book to write, just because of how many iterations it had. Yeah.
Did you have it, so you originally had Dr. Kinney Housekeeper,
Yes.
that version of the book, did you write it after that became literal? Or
Yeah, no, it was before it even became Widow. It was really early. And I had even played around with like, should I write a book of like Jane before like her life, like her backstory? Like it was still in that really early stage. And of course, I had the entire book written before I got feedback. Like it sucks, start over. But it's amazing how many times you get a please erase it all.
Well,
start over
and
again.
Ben is a, he's a great editor.
It's amazing.
But you also need to know Ben is a chaplain in the Canadian Navy.
Yes.
So he's nice. He's a
very
nice person.
But he's also like Outcast.
Yeah.
That book he had me almost rewrite
Did he?
completely.
Yeah.
When I sent it to him, he's like,
He's not-
"It's great,
But he's not
but
mean
can you
about it.
rearrange the entire thing and rewrite half of it?" Like, no, like he was super nice about it, but he basically had me redo the whole thing. So I was really nervous when I gave him Medicine Man. So I'm like, here we go again. He's gonna have me rewrite the entire thing again.
You write really fast.
I do it really fast.
I'm impressed with that.
Thank
Yes.
Yes.
So who is Ben, your editor?
He's my editor at the publishing house. Like he's the publisher.
Ben, his name's Ben Coles. He is a fantasy author himself. He's a best-selling fantasy
He's
author.
the best-selling HarperCollins fantasy author.
Yeah, and he's also a chaplain in the Canadian Navy. He got recalled to the Canadian.
He got
Navy
recalled.
recently.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, Ben.
Yeah, how's this gonna work? I know because he was like a full-time publisher. Like
Yeah.
he had his own publishing company, he was an editor, he's ghostwriter, all this stuff kind of like he was a thing in Canada in Vancouver. Like it's like a mid-sized publishing house.
Yes.
And then the army comes knocking and he's like
Navy.
or Navy, whatever. and he's like, okay. And so like, yeah, but these whole times just like, I'm gonna be at sea for 3 weeks. You won't hear from me. Okay, no problem. We're just launching a book. It's all good. It's fine. I get it out.
But he's fun to work with.
He is. He's very nice.
I went to your bibliography because, and like when you were writing, your end notes.
Yeah.
So I was just so impressed with the research that you had to do for this in the medical type of research and the way medicine was evolving at the time.
Yeah.
Was really interesting to me. So like the difference between the doctors, like what was acceptable and, the people that were more the homeopaths versus the people that were starting like the AMA or the early days of what became the AMA.
Yep.
But I just thought that was fascinating, but it's so interesting too. I mean, you've got an interest in the botanicals
Yep.
and, the things that we've kind of lost.
Right.
That we don't go to first. So that has to be fun to write, but like, how much time did you spend researching?
So much. Honestly, the amount of horrifically boring and dry medical history books I read, like medicine, the evolution of medicine in the 19th century, like the titles of them are so long, even as you see the video, like, and they're so dry and they're very convoluted. And nobody's cared for decades about it anyway. So it's like these books are gathering dust already. And it was fascinating to learn about how the medical profession, and it was only ironic, and I think I make a note in the end notes, like in a way it's like having been through a pandemic and an epidemic with COVID and stuff, and then looking back and realizing how close we are to even like learning as much as we have, and how the doctors used to like hate on each other. Just truly like an eclectic doctor versus a homeopathic versus an allopath versus an orthodox versus a hospital man, and how they did not help each other. They hated each other. Their patients couldn't be friends or do business with each other. Like it was so
It was almost like
divided.
religion.
It was. It kind of was. And then at the same time, you had like the hack down the road who's a seamstress and a doctor. Like you could do that because medical school, 3 months.
The barbers too?
Yes,
Like
surgeon barbers, because they there was nothing, and medical school truly the medical school was 3 months. And then if you didn't figure it out, you could go back and do another 3 months, the same program, 3 months. And then you got a certificate. And that was like, they still didn't know germ theory. They were, that was.
Well, they
like,
weren't at that point
no.
of sterilizing instruments and the idea that you would actually wash things off between like
Correct. So, and
surgical
I
procedures.
reference you very, very little in this book, Ignace Semmelweis. Dr. Kinney mentions him in his research. And I talk about him a little bit more in Trader. It starts to become a thing. In my research, and he was like this one-off name in like a book, you know, and I of course go down it. I'm really good at rabbit holes, so I was like, oh, yeah, I'm saying that's cool. He was a Hungarian in the early 1800s, so like 1820 and 30, maybe 1840.
So we're talking,
like
you know, 60 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he, at the time, all over Europe, women died by the thousands per month giving birth in hospitals, but from puerperal fever is what they
Right.
call it. And it's because all the doctors would go to the morgue, fish around in autopsies, and then they'd go and walk through the maternity ward and check every woman's progress without washing their hands or their instruments or their aprons. And then all of a sudden, all these women would die and their babies would die. And there were women who would want to give birth in the street. They'd go to the hospital because they knew their chances of dying were so high. And Ignaz Semmelweis, he was in the main hospital in Hungary, and then there was the secondary hospital where it was only midwives. And they had like no, and he was like, well, the only difference is we do autopsies and they don't. So then he started to research and like upset. He was like manic depressive, like obsessively researched the numbers. And then he was like, okay, I think we have to like, it's something with the putrid flesh. And like, he eventually figured out that it basically was like, we have to hand wash. We have to like scrub under our fingernails. And he got it down from like 1,000 deaths a month to 0.
With hand washing.
With hand washing. All empirical, every hospital he went to, and he did this, and sometimes the nurses would think he was insane, and they would purposefully leave like linens with like pus and everything for the women to give birth on just to prove him wrong. Because he was like, we need to have clean linens, we need to have like, and he spent decades trying to get people to agree with him, and he was absolutely laughed out of Europe. People thought he was insane. People purposefully would tell him he was crazy. They would not implement this at all. And the problem was he only had empirical evidence. I have proof that if X happens, Y happens. Mm-hmm. But I don't have a theory. Germ theory and all of that had not been proven yet. They didn't have microscopes figuring this out. They couldn't see germs. He just was like empirically, like I can prove this. Well, he started to go insane because no one would agree with him. Mm-hmm. And he ended up having a nervous breakdown. And so he got like forced by his friends and wife into an insane asylum.
Oh God. Because those are really nice places back
then. But here's the crazy thing. He got in, and on the day he went in, his finger got lacerated.
Oh no.
He died of the exact same bacteria he'd been fighting his whole life. And not 2 years later,
they figured it out.
They figured out germ theory, and they were like, oh shit, he was right.
Okay. What happened to a man? We'll fix it.
Yeah, right. No, actually, you know what? So he has been acknowledged like in multiple, like all over, you know, for his contributions to medicine, but very posthumously. Like some of it has even been like in the 1980s. We were like, oh yeah, that guy, he was a big deal. He was like actually
he was right.
He was first before Pasteur, before Lister. He was right, but he didn't have theory behind it. So he was laughed at.
I think so. Have you watched all or read all the Danny Gabaldon books?
Yes, I have.
Because she is, you know, a doctor from the future who's in times when, and she's always making everybody wash their hands.
Yeah, but you know, so it was really interesting to kind of really dive into like how much medicine was changing, and then at the same time, natural medicine, like what Widow Hobbs would have known, her people, any botanicals, that was already getting, as much as no one was really trusting medicine and believing all the science, still into the almost 1900s, all of the natural medicine was also getting shoved off. Right. So in a way, you kind of were existing in this like, we know doctors are quacks, and we don't want natural medicine, so we're just going to exist in this like void. Right. And it was a very difficult time to really like live, because you had nowhere to turn when you were sick, or if something was wrong, or if you had a bad birth or anything. Right. Because you had you couldn't go to either camp, really, if you didn't know where to turn.
The women who, a lot of this lore, whatever knowledge was passed down, and then depending upon what era you were in, you were, witch or whatever, because you knew things.
Yeah.
And you were like saying, well, if you actually just do this.
If you drink this raspberry leaf tea, you will have an abortion.
Well, then,
Now you're a witch.
and now you're burned at the stake.
And exactly. So, it's so it was really fun. And I did find a really cool reference on several references on people who starting in the early 1900s were realizing that a lot of the natural medicine and the native information was disappearing, and they went into the field and tried to gather as much of that information to write it down, because the tribes still at that time were not writing. Everything was oral, and it still is. In fact, if you go and to where they're learning, people are trying to keep the native languages alive. They fight amongst each other because they never had to write their language down, and so like they get real nitpicky on like, you use an accent there, and how do you say it? Well, we don't say it. Well, we said it. Like, and it's very crazy to watch how like finally they're writing it down and trying to even create a dictionary.
Yeah.
And they never had one until very recently, and it's still evolving because they keep adding words they forgot to put in the first time, and watching that. And so they tried to save it by writing down as much as they could, like, this is what we call it, this is what they call it, this is what we do, this is the Latin word for it, and this is how they used it, and trying to keep that in a written place. It's like on a random PDF I found. I was like, thank God somebody did it.
Well, right, because otherwise, how do you research that without being immersed in a community?
You would have to go like, get in a tribe and hope some medicine man essentially like
would talk to you, because
and probably not
that's right.
Yeah,
it was fascinating.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, and then you put that into the scenes with Jane and the push pull as she was using Hawk's remedies and trying to help, and then she's not wanting to say to Patrick what she's done to who the kid with the burns. And I always thought, I had to remember reading that honey is
but you need beehives for honey.
Yeah, you do.
Mm-hmm. So if you can't keep bees where you live, you don't have access to honey.
This is true.
So we assume, we'll just put honey on it. Like, I think and Diana Gabaldon does it really good in the Outlander series because like Claire keeps bees, so she has an ongoing supply of bees, and this is before hive collapse. So there's always bees. Like we don't have to worry about 80% of the population dying in one winter.
Are you doing bees still?
I am, but truly this past winter, most apiaries lost 80% of their hives. Yeah, it happened in 2018, and it happened this winter as well. We don't know why. Probably pesticides.
Oh yeah, I'm surprised.
But yeah, but if you live part of the world that doesn't sustain beehives well, you don't have access to honey.
Well, and it's interesting how that is a natural like healing type of thing. But is it more because it is sterile? No.
No, it's actually it's an antiviral, antibacterial.
Is it? Okay, that's why it works.
Yeah.
And like to cover up a vast burn.
Correct.
That you,
Yep, it works.
I just thought it was fun to see that push pull though between them.
Well, it would have been. It would have been because if you imagine and that was, Dr. Kinney sitting there, and he's worked so hard to even get some respect in a trade that until when he started wasn't actually considered a job. Like it wasn't a career. I've kind of established sort of a practice, and half the people don't hate me and listen to me, and the other half don't. But I'm halfway there, and then here she comes essentially undermining him, and as his wife is undermining him. But we can see the merit in both.
Right.
But that would have required a pretty big leap of okay, you go try those flowers and hope it doesn't suck.
Well, and then blow back on him.
Right, exactly.
Because it would.
It would have.
Remind me, you taught us about this at one point. What is it that for the Rocky Mountain spotty fever? Am I saying it right?
Yeah, so black measles is Rocky Mountain spotty fever.
Okay, so and what did the native tribes use again?
Sweetgrass.
Sweetgrass, which kept them.
So So yeah, I actually discovered this totally by accident, and I think I mentioned it in the back notes, but so until the 1890s, tick-borne illness was not known. So we hear of Texas fever in cows. That was a tick-borne illness that they could not figure out why these cows were just suddenly dropping dead. And it was because they were going down to Texas, they were picking up the tick and then driving the cattle north. And by the time they got there, they were dropping dead. And the ticks are just jumping from cow to cow and not killing them. You know, like it just and they couldn't figure it out, and they did not know for the longest time. And the same thing with Rocky Mountain spotted fever, or what they called black measles. And because it looked kind of like German measles, but instead of it being red, it was black because you hemorrhage under the skin.
Oh, nice.
And then your mouth and gums and all of your extremities within 5 days become gangrene, and then you die.
It's really special.
I mean, because it's actually bacteria, not a virus. And if you catch it in time, you can, if you get antibiotics before day 5, you'll recover.
Right.
But even now, if it's not figured out and caught, you have like it's 75% mortality today. Like if you don't catch it in time and get the antibiotics, it's very dangerous. It's really scary.
Tick-borne.
It's tick-borne. And so the Native Americans in their oral history, they don't have this disease. They don't die from it. It is a white man disease. And it's because the natives of the plain used sweetgrass to keep the bad spirits away. That's how they'd say it. And they would braid it. You see sweetgrass braids.
Yep.
And they would burn it in their teepees. They would wear it as necklaces. They would store their food in it. So essentially, their clothes, their hair, their food, their skin smells like sweetgrass. Well, in 2016, the American Medical Journal came out and they were like, guess what? Sweetgrass is as effective as DEET in repelling ticks.
Well,
there it is. But white people didn't live like that.
no.
So we got the ticks. And the Native Americans were like, I don't know what that is. Like, we've lived here for thousands of years and we never had it. And that's why. And they didn't even, but I mean, to them, it was like, we're keeping the bad spirits away. Well, it's keeping somewhere along the line, somebody had figured it out.
They knew.
And they knew. So, but again, imagine if we were like, no, don't just spray DEET. You just like burn grass in your house.
Well, we're all walking around smudging the
corner. It's like smudging, essentially, yeah. Well, just like sage, like you see like the name with the sage, and they actually discovered that burning sage will kill certain airborne bacteria for up to 24 hours and other airborne bacteria for up to 3 weeks.
So really, that's what we should have been doing during COVID. Forget all this.
Well, but I don't know it. I don't know if it was. I don't know what bacteria, but like they've actually proven that, and it's like there is some science behind this. Just someone forgot to write it down and tell everybody else why.
Well, the other part of, getting the information from point A to point B, the other part now is the suppression of big pharma, suppressing that because they would lose all their money selling you drugs.
Correct. It's true. It's the same thing with our food too. So, I mean, actually, every problem in this world, it all follow the money.
Do we have other questions about Medicineman or the Flats Junction series before I jump into
Just had some like character questions.
Yeah, please.
So I noticed you had Mr. May, and then you referred to somebody else. Oh, I don't think we met the character, but someone else named May, a woman.
Yes.
So his name means something?
Yes. Very good.
Okay.
I was hoping someone would pick up that tiny Easter egg. So Mr. May is the one who he's from Gloucester, and he gives Patrick the money to buy his way into an apprenticeship, right? If you go back to Widow, Jane goes to Gloucester for her Aunt Mary, and the only place you see it really is in the letter she writes to her Aunt Mary May.
Oh, you are so good.
So
you caught that.
Jane's aunt, widowed, no children, because her husband went to Civil War, which we learn in Medicine Man. And and it's kind of like, in a way, like they don't really piece this together, but there's a part where her aunt in Widow looks at Patrick and goes, it was a good choice. And you think it means Jane married well, but she knows who he is. But you didn't talk about money back then. It was vulgar.
Yes.
So it would be up to Jane and Patrick to say, someone gave me the money for my apprenticeship. This is who it was. This is how much it was. And then for Jane to go, wait, that's my uncle. My uncle gave you the money.
I totally missed that.
I do it very, very good.
Heather.
You're the only person I've ever caught that.
Together.
Yeah, but you were like, wait, that last name is
Wait.
rung a bell. And yes, that
At
is
first I was mad. I was like, these authors, they just randomly pick names.
no, it was done on purpose. Yep, it's a little circle in there that is like a thing.
You should, you should have like a, if you notice something like a prize.
I should have it. Yeah, you get the first. When I come up with the prize, you can get the first prize.
She's gonna bring her ticket to me.
Yeah, I should. Yeah. Red carpet ticket.
Maybe.
Yeah. No, very good. Yes. So that is a secret in it's revealed in Medicine Man. So it's like book 2 and then it's revealed in book 4. Yes.
Do you have your books on Audible?
Yes, all 3 of the first, and then Medicine Man will be on Audible in the next couple of weeks, actually. I
Do you
believe
get
it's,
the same company every time?
yes, it's the same voice author every time. Yes.
Can I get their name?
Sandra Murphy, I can get you her contact. She's very good. She is SAG. I mean, she's the top voice actor. She's out of Denver, and she does.
Quite a bit per hour.
No, she's SAG rates.
Oh, okay.
So it's not. It's a couple of grand for I think is what it ends up being if I remember seeing the invoices right. But she does her research. So I have accents and foreign words. She will go to like the Polish Community Center and make sure all her pronunciation and accents are correct. She will like literally check with everybody to get the accents and the pronunciation exactly right. It's super professional.
It's
Yeah, I'd like to
wonderful.
get her name.
Yes, I'm happy to recommend her. She's fantastic. She does, you have to book her out, I think I told her about Medicine Man like almost a year prior to get on her schedule.
And she's doing it. She's doing it
She
now.
just delivered the files this week
Yeah.
and the book came out. She's in Denver, Colorado.
Oh, it's done.
So, I mean, it takes a while to find a good narrator. I have a new narrator and she's from Montreal and we just went back and forth on all the Irish accents in my book.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, where in Ireland are they from? And I'm like, oh, you're hired. Because it actually matters.
Yeah.
And the fact that she asked that, I was like, you're wonderful.
Yeah, I know.
But
When you get a good one.
Her sample was cool.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's when you get a good one, it's nice and then you can keep it.
well, and people like it. And the thing is, people will listen through the whole series.
Right.
So it's really nice not to have that jarring change.
Correct. Yeah.
Pretty much only had female viewpoints so far.
Yeah, but that's why in Medicine Man, Dr. Kinney has an accent written into the book.
Yeah.
So she'll do a slightly not a full. She will only do his Irish accent with when he speaks, but
Right.
then the rest of it won't
It's
have it.
narrated.
It's not like she doesn't do a man's voice,
Yeah.
but she does for his speaking.
She changed it.
Yeah, she changes
She's
it.
an actress.
Yes.
Yeah. Who's that?
Yep. Yeah, in a way, you don't want like a voice. You don't want just a voiceover person, but an
Right.
actor.
Yes.
You
And it
want an
matters.
actual actor.
Yes.
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 So just wondering, did you in any version or think about it or anything, have Esther in more of a healing role or present at the birth or anything like that? I was kind of surprised she wasn't present.
She was at in Widow. She's there for Jane's stillbirth.
That's right.
And
That's right.
and then it just so I actually wanted there to be that juxtaposition of her births without her. And if you think about it too, like her knowledge of medicine was native, and she's trying to support Dr. Kinney and get him more of a prominent role in the community. And it's touched on, you know, I as books go on, it becomes more and more obvious. Like she and her husband, they pulled Patrick in because they knew that the town would only do well if it got a doctor. And her type of medicine, what she knew from growing up among the Lakota, would never fly. No one would have ever listened to
Even
her.
if her husband
Even
was
if-
still alive.
Even if her husband was still alive, her place was not that.
So if you're remembering who this is Widow Hawks, Esther, who was married to the banker in town who passed away.
It was Kate's dad.
Right,
Yeah.
who is the half Lakota daughter, but being a Native American, you know, in this town, she's obviously the main character in Outcast.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Her.
Yeah.
Way too.
Yeah, she becomes more and more of a, yeah. But no,
She lost her status when
she-
her husband died.
yeah,
It was
yes,
decent to her while he was still alive.
correct. She essentially was, as you see in Medicine Man and in the next book too, kind of quietly passing on what she knows to Jane. And then it's kind of up to Jane on how much she's gonna push that without really ruining her marriage and her place in town, even if she thinks she can do a better job.
I like that she has her own little kit.
Yeah,
and
but it's
all,
kind of like,
wrapped up
like
in
kind of
leather.
pantry.
And special apron.
Yeah.
or whatever.
That's truly, I mean, even if you had a very understanding husband, if you're
It wouldn't even matter what his occupation was. It wasn't necessarily going to be
right,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't have. Well, I mean, it would have been a really hard push, and I think we forget that. I think we still do it. Like we go, this works. It's in a way like we still kind of pass on our kind of wives' tale, our knowledge a little quieter than we normally would if it's like just saying, yes, it was raining yesterday. But also, if you want, you can take this tea and it will help. Like we kind of keep that knowledge. It kind of is always shoved under the rug, and back then it would have been even more so. It would have been. It almost wouldn't have. It almost is like you would have had to prove yourself every time that it worked, because it just wasn't done. It's not no battle. But
Has anybody read this?
yeah, it's okay.
No, sorry. Well, I didn't know.
Yeah.
So I was just paging through it. So I had the joy of reading it as a manuscript, and you always put in your own illustration.
Yeah.
And so I'm like going, what is that? So there's like little illustrations.
Oh yeah, you didn't see what the illustration.
I didn't see it.
Yeah.
No, I saw the cover, but I didn't see the
Yeah, there's
illustration.
a ton of illustrations. I forget
okay.
how many there are.
So why did you want to do a fairy tale retelling and give us a little
So yeah, so I have a series that's coming out that is it's called West of the Moon, and it is an epic fantasy series. And the reason it's coming out is because I wrote a TV show that got bought. And they were like, this is great. Can we get the gaming rights? And also, can you write the books?
Oh. You said,
I did. I just said, because I'm stupid. Well, so they're in development with the TV show. They're interviewing showrunners. They're all of that, and they're also like developing the video game. Like super trippy to see something you wrote, and then you get like the presentation by the gaming people going, and then we're gonna have armor that does this and this, and then like everything you just said. I don't know what you're talking about, but it sounds amazing. Go for it. And then after they started developing all that, they were like, it would be really great if you could round out the IP, if you could write the books. And so then as I started researching for all of this, it's such a mishmash of world fairy tales. I ran across The Crow, which is a very old, not well-known Polish folktale. It's sort of like a Beauty and the Beast folktale, and it's awful. Like it's really, the original tale was a crow shows up and says to this young woman, I'm in pain, but you know what would really help? If you go spend 100 nights in this dilapidated castle, sleep in the golden bed, and whatever happens at night, don't make a sound. It will help me a lot. And she's no good of heart, so she does this. Well, every night as she's trying to sleep in the golden bed, demons show up and try and boil and eat her alive. And she can't say anything as they're like torturing her.
It's like they're horrific nightmares.
They're horrific.
And it's just like I'm reading this thing going,
Yeah. And I make it 7 nights and I change up the demons because in the original tale, it's truly just like a horde of tiny demons come and like torture her and are about to boil her in oil and eat her. And then the sun shows up and they all disappear. And this goes on for 100 nights. And then because it's a Polish folk tale, after this, the crow goes, thank you, I am better. But you know what would make it even better is if you spend 3 years working as a servant girl, and then I'll be better. And so she does, like an idiot. And then, he shows up after she's like, all like hurting and her pants are like chapped and she's like a drudge. And he shows up as a golden prince and is like, woo! And he takes her off to the castle that's been restored. The end.
Is there a library?
No. No. So like that's the Polish Beauty and the Beast story. And I was like, well, I mean, this could be really cool and I could play with this. And in a way, this book was a way for me to like, sort of transition into the fact that I'm going to have a series coming out that's an epic fantasy series. And I was like, let's just like play with this and like just see what kind of comes out. And it was so much fun to write. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so much fun. I don't have to research anything.
No rabbit hole.
No. But there's like everything in there. And my husband came and he read it in 2 days. It's a quick read. And he started asking questions about it. And I'm like, well, actually, it's like the dichotomy of like, and I started explaining all the meanings. And I'm like, well, and the wood of the door is actually a real tree. And it does this if you like it blinds you. And he's going, okay, stop. So you tell me, like, if I ask 2 questions, it's AP English. Your book is in AP English class. And I was like, well, yeah, but I mean, you can read it at face value, or you can start talking about propaganda. I mean, you can go wherever you want with this. But it was,
So we just say it's multi-layered.
it's very multi-layered. But it's meant to be this like very graphic fantasy where, and every single, like you could write a 3-page paper on one of the crowns, one of the, everything. I did research, but it was all fairy tale research and it wasn't like normal research. I didn't have to read any dry medicine books. I got to read fairy tale.
I was visualizing you in some library down in Madison in the stacks, blowing dust off something.
I tried. So that's in a way that was my crossover book. But it sold really well. Like, sold really well when it first came out. So like,
it's still actually doing.
Is it? Yeah.
There's a category on Amazon for books called dark fantasy.
Oh,
and they don't mean like romantic.
No,
that kind of. Yeah.
No, it's kind of like it's really gruesome and like she's watching her entrails come out of her and they're gonna eat them. Like, I mean, it's gross.
Yes,
it's meant to be awful and
like
dark.
Monsters.
Yeah, kind of. But they're all real fairy tales from all over the world. Things that actually are in dark, like pre-Grimm's brothers fairy tales.
I would imagine that a lot of you here, people watching, aren't into the fairy tale tellings or that sort of thing. But there's an entire like spot for these books in the bookstore.
Right.
There's people making lots and lots of money on, but most of them are the ones that we remember.
Yeah,
they're not quite that. I mean, they twist them up and make them slightly darker. The Eastern European influence on this is really fun.
Yeah, it was. And I use a lot of Polish and stuff like that. And
I like that.
It was fun. It was so much fun to write. But, and it was like I said, it was a crossover book and it was really nice not to have to essentially create a doctorate thesis before I write my books.
So tell me the name of the next series, the one that you're writing. It's to match up with
the series is called West of the Moon.
West of the Moon.
But the first book is called The Daughter Who Rode the Winds.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sounds like my kind of book.
I think you like it. I enjoyed writing it, but
I still say one day we're going to be watching, credits roll and the TV series and go.
Someday,
Remember
maybe.
when she went to books in the
She's actually Columbus, Ohio. I'm sure I'll still. No, it'll be fine. No, it'll be fine. And it's just I think right now trying to juggle the Flats Junction stuff and the copper stuff and the fantasy stuff.
It's a lot of
it's kind of and you just really writing it becomes like boxes. Okay, I'm going to write this chapter of Flats Junction and this chapter of this book and then this. It's very boxy.
Well, it's not the way you used to write.
No.
And now you've got different pulls on your time. And
you have to outline. I never used to outline. I was like such a gut writer. And now I like outline.
So you can write faster?
not necessarily, just like I actually have to pay attention because I have to like weave
Well, it's
together.
because you've got the series.
Like it's a
You know,
series.
you gotta keep, you gotta
And I have
keep
to
track of it.
like focus. I can't just like gut right, like and this happens and this that. Like that, those days are gone. Gone.
They were probably gone by the time you got to like book 2, 2 and a
Yeah.
half. You couldn't do it.
By 3, it was a thing. And now I kind of have to do it even, you know, I'm writing another book right now that's a standalone, and it truly took a year of research and about this many books. And it's
Wait.
a time.
Another one?
Yeah.
A standalone.
It's a standalone.
Doesn't match anything you talked about yet tonight.
No.
What's that about?
Oh my God, you got
I mean, I know we're over time, but I just gotta know this last thing.
it is about the Jewish Underground Railroad of the 1500s, made possible, sounds like a joke, by a Christian, a Muslim, and a Jew.
It does sound like a bar joke.
Right? But like super offensive because none of them drank. But so in the middle of Renaissance Europe, right? That world was run by women. We don't think the French king was run by his mistress Diane de Poitiers. It was King Henry VIII and then Mary Tudor. All the descendants of Ferdinand and Isabella were like running Portugal and Spain. Catherine Medici was running Italy, and Queen Marie of Hungary was running like the Low Countries. It was women, right? And they were like, yeah, Inquisition, come on in. Because we just want like all the money from the Jews. That's really what it was, because they were always poor, because they sucked at budgeting apparently. And they were, that's why they were, the true Inquisition was to get money.
Your summary of like,
Sorry.
3 centuries of
I know.
history.
Just like, so much research. I get poisoned on the page. I'm a master then. But they were, and the whole of Christian Europe was at war with the Ottoman Empire, the dreaded Turk, because they were Muslim. And if they spread their infidel ways on the Christians, it would be the end of civilization as we know it. And all of the Ottoman Empire was run by Suleiman the Magnificent. I mean, what a name, right? And he was like conquering Hungary and Poland. He had control of the Mediterranean, all of Italy. Like he was running half the world. And he was Muslim. And the whole premise for the Inquisition, half of it was, we don't want the Jews to get over to the dreaded Turks / their money and brains. Like, keep them here. And if they don't stay here, we'll just kill them and take their money. And we won't. You know, like that's really what it was, if you kind of boil it down. And so, the richest woman in the world at the time was a widow from Portugal. Her husband died, left half his fortune. It was in the pepper and silver trade.
Natural causes.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Yes. Yeah, she was much young, and she never remarried. Like, and so she got half his fortune. The other half went to his brother. When his brother died, he left her everything else. She was the richest woman in the world. She was also a secret Jew. And nobody knew.
So there.
And she had to like every time she landed in a country, the monarch was like, hey, richest woman in the world, we would like to marry you off to someone. I mean, your daughter. I mean, we would just like to marry you to someone and keep you in this country, and we're never going to give you the papers to leave ever. And so she'd be like, oh, I'm in Hungary now, or I'm in Antwerp. Oh, but I need to go to the baths in France. Can I just get like the papers for that? And never mind, I'm actually in Italy and I'm never coming back. Like she had to like hide the whole time. And the whole time she's using all of her husband and her brother-in-law's network to get thousands of Jews out of Europe and into the Ottoman Empire. Because Suleiman the Magnificent was like, absolutely, I will take your money, I will take your brains, I will build you synagogues. And he, even though he was a Muslim, broke with thousands of years of tradition and married a Christian Polish-Ukrainian woman. And it was like a big deal, like a huge deal. And when he was gone, she was in charge of the Ottoman Empire. And for 2 years, the three of them existed before people started dying. They existed in the Ottoman Empire, and it was such a thing where, like, if they were blocking some of Gracia Janazi's ships with Jews on them, they could, like, stop the trade in that one port just by power of the Sultan's ships. Or she'd be like, they're blocking, essentially, people from coming into the country, and he'd be like, great, I'll write to the king and tell them we'll invade, unless they let the people through. Like, it was that much of a network and they...
Sounds like another movie.
Well, it could be whatever, who knows, I don't, but it was, and for 2 years, the three of them existed in the Ottoman court together, because she eventually made her way to Constantinople and turned around to Christian Europe and was like, surprise, I'm a Jew, also I'm safe here, so it doesn't matter, but it was, all of that's lost. I mean, you guys have never heard of that, right? And it's all true, and it's all documented, and yet the research was horrific.
Yeah,
Because
to
like,
pull it all together.
and it's lost. The woman that married the Sultan, we don't know her name.
Really?
Was never recorded because she was a Christian slave that he elevated, freed, and then married. Never documented her birth name, her birth city. Suleiman the Magnificent, his mother, the greatest sultan of all time, his mother, half of the Turkish sources are like, she was a Tartar princess with the blood of Genghis Khan. And then somebody else is like, she was a Jew named Helga from Hungary. And someone else is like, she was a Russian slave Christian. And I'm like, all three of those don't have anything to do with each other, but original sources were saying that was the truth. We don't know. Gracia Janazi's husband was forcibly converted from Judaism to Christianity when he was 15. His Jewish name has been lost. There's no written act.
So you'll
There's
never
nothing.
be able
We'll
to
never
go
know.
further back to figure out.
Never know.
family.
It's so there's so much, but also so much crucial information
Do you
is lost.
sleep?
Yes, I'm working on 7 hours a night.
Oh, that's
Wow.
good.
I know.
You used to get less.
I did before.
We like, Sarah, you're
I felt like
at
I
1 in the
was
morning.
dying.
And
I felt like I was dying, and I realized I should sleep more.
It was like, and you're gonna swim at 5:30 in the morning, and you're answering emails at 12:30. That does not compute. So thank you.
Anyway, sorry. Thank you for letting me tell that last story. I'm just so excited about this book.
I'm now excited about this book too, but I don't know when you're gonna have time to write it. So I better.
I'm 84,000 words in already. What is this thing gonna be? Probably like 120.
Oh, you're getting there. Have you been a reader?
Sure.
All right.
I thought that was the greatest history presentation.
Thank you. It's not going to. It's like condensed.
That's the way all history teachers should be, you know?
Right? People would care so much, and then we wouldn't have repeats of like the exact same.
Oh, God.
We should get around the Middle Eastern problem.
Yeah.
I can solve that too, but we don't have enough time for me to.
I want to drive home.
Yeah, I do.
So
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you.